My name is Jennifer Gray-Thompson, and I am the CEO of After the Fire. Welcome to the podcast, How to Disaster: Recover, Rebuild, and Reimagine. In this podcast, we bring you the very best practices, best hearts, and great ideas from other disaster-affected communities. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Season 3 of the How to Disaster podcast, where we help you recover, rebuild, and reimagine. During this season, we will be releasing Take Fives, shorter episodes that highlight some of our past guests speaking about similar issues, themes, topics. We wanted to do this so that perhaps it'd be easier if you only have a few minutes, but you wanted to connect with these focused episodes and guests, that you could condense all their messages into one smaller bite-sized piece. One of the things that we know about disaster is that we really have to meet people where they're at. And sometimes where you're at is you only have 5 minutes. We're very excited for the third season. We've got great guests and wonderful information and content about how to actually help get your community through to the other side. So thank you for joining us. And if you wish to find out more, please visit our homepage at afterthefireusa.org. Consider giving us a like or follow if you like this podcast. We really appreciate it, and thank you for your time.
So the mission of Rebuild Paradise is to provide long-term disaster support for the disaster-affected residents, businesses, and workforce in Butte County. Heavily focused on the Camp Fire right now. We unfortunately have had another disaster with the North Complex Bear Fire this year, to where another one of our communities lost almost 2,000 structures. And so that we're evaluating tucking that into our programs as they start to look at to go from disaster response to long-term recovery, and seeing if we have the ability and the bandwidth and capacity to take on that as well. So we're really focused on supporting the residents, businesses, and workforce within the community. And right now, our heavy focus is on residents, because commercial survived more than our residential structures did. And so the need to get houses back for people that are displaced, for workforce housing, and also to support the current businesses that are there is paramount. So most of the services, nearly all the services that we've developed to date, is to support residents coming back and lowering barriers to entry.
I don't know that I chose it, which is weird to say. I feel like it chose me. I don't ever think that I never woke up and I was like, I'm gonna save the world. That just wasn't in my portfolio, my wheelhouse. I woke up and I saw a need, and I thought, I can do this for other people. And it ended up being what I needed in the long run. But it was never like a definitive choice I made. Starting the nonprofit, that was a choice, but that was also like, it was the, love child of being chosen to do this thing. And it just came naturally. We were already in it. And so to kind of form it and organize it, which is what I do best, I am very good at organizing. Organizing it just came naturally to me. And so because of it, it just all fell in place.
Then to admit that something is scary it's scary. And so there's a very prominent leader in this town, and I'm not going to mention his name, but we were talking one day and he said, people always ask me, like, how do you do so much stuff, or how do you take such chances? Don't you ever get scared? And he's like, I am scared every day. I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm scared. And I think that people would be surprised to learn that. But I've actually carried that through me for the past 3 years, or with me in my leadership, because when I get scared is usually when I'm going to have a breakthrough to something better. And knowing that there are other people who are in positions of leadership who are also scared sometimes has really made me more self-compassionate. So self-compassion.
You have to, part of leadership is, can you walk into the fear, right? Can you face the fear, you know? And that's very often it's like, I just want to, like sometimes you want to give up. It's easy to be like, give up and then, okay, I'm going to take one step. Sometimes it's bits and pieces, chewing off bits and pieces. But yeah, I think that people often assume like, oh, Lorez has got it. She's got it together. Da, da, da. She's this, she's that. And I'm like, no, I'm at 3 o'clock in the morning, doubting myself like, you know, everybody else. I just put my lipstick on and just, you know, keep plugging along. But it's the ability to kind of push through it, push through it each day, each moment, each meeting, each thing, pushing through it and standing through it bravely. And then like one of the things that I know I do is I also kind of admit where I am. Like I'll say, I'm a processor. So I'm not going to give you an answer right now. I'm going to have to take this home. I'm going to process it. You'll hear from me. If you don't hear from me by the end of the day, I don't mind a gentle reminder in the morning. That lets someone know that I didn't just leave the room. I didn't just leave the room and it's not that I don't have a decision or I didn't think about it. I just want you to understand my process a little bit so that they understand my leadership of like, oh, maybe I need to go talk to somebody first. Maybe I need to think about this. I need to mull about it. So a lot of times I'll say, I'm just going to let you know, this is how my process is. I'm going to take this, I'm going to chew on it, I'm going to process it, and I'm going to give you an answer. So I'm also showing a little vulnerability, right? That I don't know. I don't have an answer for you right now. I'm not even trying to give you an answer when I don't feel comfortable giving you an answer, but I've also explained my process. So to me, it's also like, how do you bring people along in your process of how you do things? Because where there is no communication or you don't feel, people will fill the gaps. So like you're saying, someone will say, oh, well, she always seems like she's got it together. She always just, how does she make decisions so easy? Just seems like she can make decisions. Like, yeah, no, that's not me. I got to process that. I got to chew on it. I got to think about it, you know, taking a shower, think about it a little while, but bringing them into my process helps them go, okay, so I understand now. She's a thinker. She got a process. So how do we also show some vulnerability about how we work, but in a way that you don't want to say, well, things like, well, you know, I always have typos in my papers. And so that's why I didn't get that paper to you, because I always have typos and da-da-da-da. And the person's going to be looking for those typos. So there's got to be a way that you share your vulnerabilities, your process, but also in a way that I always tell my daughters who are starting to get professionally is, but you don't also give people all the negatives, right?
This podcast is sponsored by Fire Safe Signs. In a disaster, seconds matter. Fire safe signs give first responders critical information like, can a fire truck make it down the driveway? What water sources are available? Fire safe signs help property owners provide crucial information to first responders, and they're made in the USA. Getting this information in seconds helps save lives. Together, we make our community safe. Visit us today at firesafesigns.com.
This is going to speak to the value of a long-term recovery group or a collaborative or after a disaster, community organizations coming together in a space that allows them to cross collaborate and to have meetings identified by certain needs, housing, shelter, spiritual and emotional wellness. There's a whole gamut of basically committees that come together. And so by participating in those committees and being very focused on making sure that you're attending those community meetings and being a part of that is really, really critical, because that's where I started to develop the relationships with county officials and town officials that were coming to these meetings to represent what the municipalities were doing. So that's where I had a chance to meet the chief building officer, the person who's in charge of development services, which is where the county reviews floor plans and looks at permits and stuff like that. So making those relationships and your county supervisors and your town council members and making those relationships and letting them know this is what our plan is. Then when you go in to start asking questions, they know you and they're willing to work with you. And so we built those relationships across both municipalities. And then when we wanted to take this floor plan library idea forward, now we're having meetings with the chief building official and saying, this is how we plan to move forward. how can we work best with your staff to see that it's functional, because we don't want to just dump a burden on you. We want you to be part of the process. And so in that, we're now hosting meetings with the design community and also the county and the town. So now we're having roundtable discussions about how to improve process overall.
There were several of us who went in together on surveys. I believe there were about 18 of us, and we each saved over $1,000 with each parcel for the surveying. And then I know that there were a few ladies in Zone 11 that went in together on a set of plans. They tweaked them a little bit. And they ended up all using the same builder and saving costs exponentially because they're all so close together. So when you're in the same zone, you can utilize people and reduce those costs because they're doing less work because it's centralized. And so we really tried to implement that as much as possible throughout the zones, but that evolved quickly. I mean, we went from, trying to get the community back together to implementing rebuilding to realizing people were having serious struggles, both with the county and the town, permits, whether or not they were allowed to live on the property, Cal OES debris removal. I mean, there were just unforeseeable events that kept popping up. And then we realized they're all the same. We're all having the same issues everywhere. They just look a little different. So we then transitioned from rebuilding to education. We were like, okay, who needs this information? How do we push it? So we went to work on the website, and we created what we call the weekly Q&A. And we did one for the town of Paradise and one for the county.
It's built in my all through my muscle tissue and skin and cells to move onward and to have faith and hope. And when the days and the days seem the bleakest and the darkest, to hold on hope, because for tomorrow shall come. And so I think that, that's also a unique thing you can bring as a leader, is hope for people. And just to say, I can't solve it, but this day too shall pass, and the next day and the next day and the next day, and each day it'll get a little better, and you're going to have a setback, and you're going to have a hard day, but we have to keep some hope and faith. And like you say, in a lot of emails with onward, I'm like, I'm going to complain in this email, I'm going to bitch, and I'm going to get a whole lot of stuff off my chest, and then I'm going to end it with, but onward. Like I said all that, but that means we have to keep fighting the fight. So I think that, having hope and faith in humanity, which has been, I know challenging, these last few months, is what has to keep us, going. And at least that's what keeps me going. And so I think that's another strong thing that you can bring sometimes in a space is, it is what it is today. It is what it is today. I mean, like, it is what it is. But that doesn't mean it has to always be like that. And it doesn't mean that we can't have some peace in changing it or making it better for one person, one pet, one child. Sometimes you can't hit hundreds, thousands. You can't exponentially grow it. But sometimes if you can just make it a little better for 3 people, 5 people, or the people who have to go out and help the people that we care about in our communities, if we can give them the hope to go on one more day through what they're seeing and experiencing. It's difficult, right? We come back together as people who direct service providers, and we have some difficult stories and sad stories and stories that bring you to tears and kids that I can't stop thinking about to this day. But I have to keep hope and help the next kid so that kid can be there to help the next adult and next person and bring compassion and empathy. So I think that's really important too, to say that we can be a place of hope and positivity and support for people. If we can't do anything else, if I can't give you money, I can't necessarily go be there. But what I can do is put out a message of hope and positivity in the dark for people, what seems like the most darkest times of their lives.
Thank you for joining us on the podcast, How to Disaster. For more information, please visit our website at afterthefireusa.org. And if you liked this video, please hit subscribe.
Fannie Mae provides mortgage options for you and your family. If you have a mortgage owned by Fannie Mae, you may have financial options available after a disaster, such as forbearance plans, deferral of payments, lending assistance, and counseling. Find out more from our Disaster Response Network. Go online at www.knowyouroptions.com/relief or call 1-877-833-1746 today.